Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of How to Use MacStitch or winstitch with me, Sarah from Little Stab Studios. Today we are all going to be learning a little bit more about using layers in MacStitch. This is another super useful tool and another one that I like to work with a lot because there are so many things that you can do with layers. Now, if you're familiar with photo editing software like Photoshop or using GIMP like I've shown before, you might have seen that those programs also have layers. And these are a little bit different from working with layers in a Photoshop, but they're not so different that they won't be a completely alien concept. We just have to edit them a little bit differently. If you're not familiar with working with Photoshop or any of those sorts of programs, it will be a little bit different, maybe a bit of a learning curve, but it's a really useful topic to learn about if you're interested in graphic design or just getting more familiar with working on digital art. And the basic concept of layers is that you're kind of like using tracing paper to make a compiled image, and you have different sheets of paper with different parts of your picture on it. And if you combine them together, you're going to have a great image. And I'm going to show you how we can combine different parts to make an image come together as one, and how we can edit those pieces individually so we don't make any drastic changes. So I have this pattern up again, and I'm going to be working with it, and we're going to make a new layer. We are going to paste in an area as a layer, both as a motif and as a chart. We're going to edit that layer, and then we're going to work with text as a layer as well. And I want to go ahead and mention that I did briefly touch on this topic in my video on alpha text, and I show how you can make your layer bigger by editing it in a separate window. So if you really want to go right into how do I edit a layer and how do I make it larger, because that in particular is a little tricky to figure out, please check out that video. I will put a link to it in the description, and I'm also going to pop that up in the top right corner, so you can go ahead and check that out if that's what you really want to see. But if you're brand new to layers, let's go ahead and get started. So if you're looking for layers, you will see it right down here, and it shows you an example, again, like I said, kind of like tracing paper, and you have a few different layers up there. You're going to have a base layer, which would be your chart, and then you're going to have layers on top of that. And then when you go up to edit, you will see that you have the option to paste as layer whenever you have something on your clipboard. I actually think I might have an image or text from before I even opened MacStitch up this time, and it's automatically detecting, oh, you have something that you hit copy on. Would you like to paste that as a layer? And I don't right away, but I just want to show you that you aren't limited to only copying and pasting, stitching in as layers. You can do all different kinds of things with that. But if we go over to the layer keyboard, it's going to get rid of palette, and you'll see that it has a number of sections. Each one of these rows is space for a layer. So what we want to do is we actually want to go ahead and get started with a layer. And one way that we can do that is to make a new chart, quite simply. So let's go ahead and make a new chart. Just make it blank real quick. And I am going to keep it simple, and I think we will just draw a circle. So let's say I'm playing around with that design on the other place, and I want to know what would it look like with a circle. And maybe I want to test it out, and I'm not sure if I want to keep it there. So a great way to test out different design ideas is by using layers, because they're very easy to get rid of, and you're not going to be doing anything permanent to the rest of your chart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit copy, and then I'm going to go back over to my other chart, and if I go to edit and I hit paste as layer, it's gonna give it a minute, and then it's gonna pop up with the selection that I picked, and you'll see it did not take any of the blank space. So I can, let's say, put it here. I'm gonna put it over my chart because I wanna make sure that I'm getting a few of those. And if you hit edit, if you click on paste as a layer, it's still going to have that up. But after the first click, you'll see it pasted onto the chart directly. So if I just hit Command C, it's going to undo that, and I would want to go to paste as layer again. And now I have two of the separate layers. But if you see them starting to, again, you click it after clicking paste as layer once, and you see how it has the squares over it there. That means that it is not a layer, and it is in fact part of the chart already. And I just hit Command Z to get rid of that. And now if I want to work, on the layer, I have to go back to the layers selection and click on the layer I want to edit. So this is my first layer. This is the one down here. And you can change the order, so I can move it around. It's a little hard to tell when I have it down here. You can get rid of it with the trash can. You can merge it or flatten it. And what this would do is it would make it not be a layer, and it will put this onto the chart. So if I click that, then you notice the squares pop up, and that means it's part of the chart again. And I can hit undo, and it goes back again. And usually when you hit undo, it wants to default back to the palette. So you just click on layers again to get back there. If you click here, you can adjust the transparency so that you can make it a bit see-through. And so this way you can make sure that you're lining it up exactly where you want it. So that's a helpful way to be able to adjust things. And you'll notice I've been dragging it around, but you can also move it with these nudge buttons. So if I click it this way, you'll see it went over one column to the right. And I could do 1, 2, and it goes over 2 columns. And again, up and down work the same way. So if you know, oh, I want to get it right over here in the center, go 1, 2, 3 to the left, and then I can make sure it is exactly where I want it. So using these arrows, you can nudge it very carefully. I'm going to go back up, and if I hit cancel, then it will take the transparency back up to 100%, so it won't be see-through again. This lock over here, if you click that, then I cannot move the layer until I click unlock. And this would be useful if you want to be able to move multiple layers around, and I don't want to accidentally click the other one. I'm only going to be able to move this layer, and I cannot move this one until I have unlocked it. And if I click it again, then it gets unlocked and I can move it around freely. You can also shrink it without having to edit it in a different text box. If I click 90%, it will be 90% as large as it was, so it'll be 10% smaller. And the same thing with all of these other percentages. So 50%, it would then be 50% of that 90%, and each time you hit shrink, it will go down again. And then finally, this last toolbar over here is edit layer and new window. So this would be if you want to change the color, or if you decide that you want to adjust the size in a way that it's difficult to do with percentages. So I kind of notice I don't like how large it is on these sides, and maybe I want to change that up. This is the color I want with. And let's just say I like that, and I can quickly add 4 stitches to each side. And this is something that would be a little difficult to do purely by working on percentages, and maybe I want to change the color as well. I think I'll go with a blue since I've got green and red already. flood fill, and now that one is blue. And then you'll notice we have a limited menu up here, and that's because MacStitch is telling us that we are editing a chart technically, but it knows that this is a temporary edit and we're not going to be saving it probably. You can save it if you want to, but if you want to just make your changes quickly and then put it back into the chart that you were working on, you want to go to Close and Update Original Chart. So I click that, and then you'll notice that I still only have the 2 layers that I was working with, but now instead of 2 red circles, I have 1 red circle and then I have 1 blue circle. So it changed this layer, and then it closed out the editing window that I was working in. And again, in the alpha text video, I show how you can also edit it in a new window to make it larger and then paste it back in as well. And I'm going to go ahead and delete these 2 layers now. Click that again. And they're just gone. And I want to show a couple other ways that we can add in different layers. And another one we can do is to insert an image. So a reason you might want to put a picture in is if you want to show how to do a certain stitch. Like maybe instead of all cross stitch, maybe I want to have a lucky clover in satin stitch. So I might want to insert a picture of a clover in satin stitch. And that way, anyone who's reading my chart would be able to see where that image is, and they can follow along with it. Or I could also insert my logo so that I could prevent people from taking my chart and saying that they made it, because there would be a picture of my logo right on the chart and you would have to do a bit more work to get rid of it, perhaps. So if I hit insert picture, and I will just quickly look for logo, and I will go here. And here you can see it is a little bit big, but again, luckily, it's easy to edit that. And you can see all I had to do is click insert picture, and it automatically bumped me into the layer editing bar, suppose you can say, and I can shrink it with these. It is going to automatically constrain the image. So if I go down like this, you want to kind of ignore the floating version and focus on the green lines with the red circles. If I squish it down like this, it looks like I'm trying to make it a long red rectangle, but MacStitch is like, hold on a second, your image is a square, it's gonna stay a square. And personally, I kind of like that, but just FYI, if you want to have an image and you want to adjust it, you're gonna have to do that in another program. So MacStitch is going to keep you using the image in the original proportions that you had it in, but you can increase it or decrease it when it is an image. So again, I can make it smaller, I can make it larger, this size is fine, and I can pop it right next to this. And then if I choose to export as PDF, this image is automatically going to flatten down onto the PDF, and it will print out right next to the chart. It'll be right here on the PDF file. So that's a pretty cool thing. And you can see it's got merge, flatten. I can make it, again, visible. Oh, also, I don't think I mentioned this one before, this eye. I can make it invisible, and then you just have the box there. So you could double check, are there any symbols behind it? Do I want to get rid of those? Or do I want to move the image over? Make sure it's not in the way, something like that. And then you click the eye again, and it is visible again. So you can quickly turn it off and turn it on so that you can double check things. And that's how you get an image in as a layer. You can also delete it if you'd like to get rid of it though. And then you can also paste in, as we saw before, I think I mentioned it, when you take these, you can copy and paste them as a layer. But another way we can work from that is to select an option and promote it as a layer. So maybe I designed this part and I'm not sure if I want to keep it there, if I want to move it. So I can go to Option and I want to go to Promote Selection to Layer. And this doesn't move it at all, but what it does is you will see that the lines that were around it are now behind it, and the stitches are a little bit elevated because I've promoted it to a layer. So now I can make changes to this in position. I could decide to play around with the location of it. I can edit it in a different screen without making any changes to the other parts of my chart, etc. Just like we did with the layer that we pasted in. And then when I'm done editing, I can hit merge and flatten again. So you can take a section of your chart and make changes to it and make sure that you're not making those changes to another part of the chart. So I really like using layers in that sense as well, because sometimes I'll be working and I'll forget to plan things out, and being able to change an area into a layer for a little while and then put it back on my chart is a great way to make those changes. And you can do this with the motifs as well. You can put all of these as layers. So we'll work with a hummingbird. Oof, it's a big bird. Look him down. And I could just select him and promote him to a layer, or I could have put him down in a new chart, but they can become layers as well. And another way we can do this is with text. I could always say hello. And maybe this is a little bit small, but this is, oops, excuse me, hit the wrong button. This is great if you're not sure, if you want to put some text in, or if you want to see if it's large enough or small, how it would look. Oh, I'm sorry, I clicked paste, didn't I? Let me do that one more time. I know I did hit paste as layer. Okay, hit paste as layer. And then if we click it down, you'll see it does not have those green lines, and it went ahead and it put it into the layer editing section. And again, this is great if you want to be really careful with your text placement. Sometimes we make charts, you know, maybe I've seen a lot of those nice wreaths, flowers and things like that, and maybe you want to put some text in the middle and you want to make sure it's exactly in the middle. This is a great way to do that, because you can paste in your text, you can adjust the size, you can always shrink it if you need to, and then you can nudge it one row at a time and then one column at a time, and you can get it exactly where you want it. So this is awesome to use your text as a layer too. And I really like it for editing. And again, if I am done with my editing, I hit merge, flatten, and then the little green squares pop up and it is ready to work with them. And some people like to include their colors that they use. The palette, they like to include those as a layer. I think I've shown these before. I'm trying to remember. I don't personally do that. And I'm trying to remember how to do that again. If I can remember. So dark. Yeah. And shape. No. Did not want to do that. It's under insert key. Was that it? Yes. Okay. So this is one of the ones you can enter. If I wanted it to only have, switch that out. Oh, excuse me. So you hit insert and you go to key. If I wanted it to only have the colors that were actually being used, I would just remove all of these bad boys. Why don't I do that real quick? We'll go back to palette, and then from here we are going to go up to So remove all unused threads from the palette. Then we can go to Insert Key. And then you'll see that it only has the colors that are in the chart. So if you want to make a quick stitch chart, like this one, you know, it's got what, 5 colors? That's quite easy for most stitchers to work with. And I think we could all assume that these are full crosses and that it's 2 strands throughout. You could simply save this as an image if you want to and work with it like that. So for simple charts, you could definitely use that. But again, this is a layer. So Insert Key is yet another way that we can work with them. But I like to have a little bit more instruction with mine. So in general, I don't work with that tool, but I do know some people really like it. So I just wanted to make sure that I went over that as well. And I forgot, actually, I'm going to promote this tool layer because I want to show you that when it comes to erasing, and if you go into your palette and you click on Erase, I did not promote this section to a layer. So this part of the O can be erased normally, but this L, I cannot erase it right now. And that's because it's a layer. And this is, again, the layer helps make sure that we're treating this section kind of as if it were on a different piece of paper almost. And that means that we can't delete it unless we decide to get rid of the layer. And then it goes away completely. So I wanted to make sure that nobody ended up getting a layer and got confused with how to get rid of it. But I think that about covers it with layers. If you do have any questions, feel free to let me know, and I could always see if I could go into a little bit more detail here. Again, if you want to see how to make a layer larger, you do that in a new window, which is how I showed you with making the circle blue and a little bit larger. And I go into more detail in the alpha text video with that. If anyone has any video suggestions, please let me know. And until then, happy stitching, and I hope you found this helpful. And if you did, please give this a like, thumbs up, and subscribe. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.